I'm more used to the term brother, Harold, than that other term that, that term sounds like King Farouk or something that they use for diplomats. But it's great to be here at this wonderful convention. I had the opportunity to speak with you in 2004 in Boston, and it was, again, a wonderful privilege to be with my friends, the firefighters from across Canada and United States. I noticed the Manitoba local, Alex Forrest, and his team is in the penalty box in the back there, Brother Harold. But they're used to being in the penalty box. It's okay. That's where the fighters go. But it is in the union sense, not in the hockey sense. And I just want to say to the members here, congratulations again to Brother Harold for his re-election as your president. As a new person in Washington a couple of years ago, listening to senators, congressional representatives, members of the administration, when Harold Schaitberger speaks, people in Washington listen, and when he speaks and you speak, people in the United States and Canada listen. That's why when we talk about fighting together with this union, you have the public on your side, and I believe that the resolutions you pass are important for the public of both Canada and the United States, and you're going to get it done with the resolve of your leadership and the convention delegates here. It's certainly important to note that a lot of people will be speaking for your support in the next 100 days politically, but the good thing about this union, I have always found that you can't just talk about it, you got to do it. You got to walk the walk for firefighters. And that means going beyond the speeches to action. Action in two ways. One, right now with budget pressures after budget pressures, it is important that political leaders stand with you in the budget decisions that they're making. Families, when they're at the kitchen table, do not cut important safety issues for members of their families. And I believe the same principle is true all across our two countries. When it comes to public safety, that has to be the #1 priority for the budgets that are being passed, and they cannot have a situation where firefighters and first responders and police officers are sacrificed in budgets. People have to stand with you and stand with you in the budgets that they're passing right across our two countries. I also believe it's important that political leaders stand with you on legislation protecting and standing with firefighters. The lack of presumed coverage is denied coverage. You know that. You know that better than anyone else. For years and decades, people that didn't have presumed coverage in legislation had to go to court, had to hire lawyers, got denied and denied and denied over and over and over again on health benefits that they were entitled to based on the occupational realities of being a firefighter. And I am absolutely proud that your international, Harold and his team in Washington, Scott and his team in Ottawa, and Alex Forrest and his local in Manitoba, they made it possible to give us the research, to give us the science, to pass presumed coverage for every serious cancer that is an occupational reality for firefighters. No family, no fire worker should be denied coverage. Every firefighter in North America should have presumed coverage based on occupational realities. I think it's extremely important also to note, as your president has pointed out, that when we are able to get your great passion and advice to pass our legislation, firefighters in Manitoba fanned out all across the country to get this legislation passed, not only in Canada, but in some places in the United States. But it's also important to note that we learn a lot of things in Canada from firefighter locals here in America. I was in Boston. I think we were having a beer. It's legal. It's illegal in Canada, legal in the United States. having a beer, and I met some firefighters from California. And they went over all the ways in which they dealt with heart injury preconditions and how that they were able to manage that. And we took all their research and we took it back again to Manitoba and brought in coverage for heart injuries based on the advice we got from the California firefighters. So I just want to thank the California locals that are here today and thank them very, very much for that advice. It went, again, it's legislation that was passed in our province and went all across our country. Now, I know after 9/11, it was unbelievable, the bravery of the firefighters and the loss that your membership suffered in those unspeakable incidents in New York and in Pennsylvania and at the Pentagon. And of course, we have stood with the firefighters in terms of budget cuts that were made after that, unbelievably after that. And we have also stood with the firefighters in legislation dealing with presumed conditions. But we have also been, Canada, United States, has been together with the United States in Afghanistan ever since that incident. And it really does speak to our relationship beyond all of us here in the room, and speaks to the relationship that we've had over the last 200 years. Now, in Canada and the United States, especially on the East Coast, they're celebrating or commemorating the War of 1812. That was the last time we had a little battle together. You burned Toronto, the Americans. We burned the White House. I can't say that publicly. It's not very diplomatic. So after that, we arrived at a peace, and we haven't been at war for 200 years. The only thing we fight about now is who's got the better beer. And I would absolutely claim that Canada has the stronger beer. You can find out when you visit us up in Canada. We believe we have the stronger beer. Less water, more hops in our beer. But since that time, it's also important to note that we have been together when the world is under extreme military pressure. We have been together for the last 200 years. We were together in World War I. We were together in World War II. We were together in Korea. A year ago, our fighters were together with your fighters, jet fighters, in Libya when Gaddafi, who of course was a terrorist, was threatening to kill the people that were protesting there. We were together with you there. We're together with you on what we can or can't do in Syria. We are together in the first Iraq war and what we might do on returning democracy to Iraq today. We're together on what may happen with the Iranian government obtaining a nuclear weapon and what that will present as a threat to the innocence of people in the Middle East and to the lives of people in Canada and United States. And I think it's really important to note that as we're standing together with the kid from Philadelphia in Kabul right now, standing together with the kid from Philadelphia, that we not only commemorate their bravery as we celebrate the bravery of firefighters, but we pray for their safe return back to Canada and United States after that mission is completed. And it's also very important to note that all the places I've been talking about lately are in the Middle East. It's in the Middle East. And, you know, I think that there is a value of talking about the ability of Canada and United States not only to work together in distant lands and in the Middle East, but to finally talk about having energy independence from the Middle East here in Canada and United States. We should have energy independence here. We have talked about it since Richard Nixon was the president. And I think we have the means and the brains and the God-given resources to go ahead with an energy independence strategy here with Canada and United States. It has 4 elements to it, I believe, and I think they're all very, very important. Number 1, energy efficiency. The president, who is speaking here later today, doesn't get a lot of publicity on the fact that he brought the California tailpipe emission standards and other emission standards in Canada together in one huge emission standard reduction policy and regulation in the United States, which we brought in on the same day, on the same hour, on the same minute in Canada. 25% reduction in fuel, cleaner air, cleaner water. And we're actually supporting the auto industry on both sides of the border, and they're making the transition partly by selling more cars that guzzle less gas. So you got the added benefit of having a good energy policy, a good environmental policy, and a very good policy for purchasing cars that are made here in Canada and the United States. The second element is renewable energy. And sometimes it's tough to get a renewable energy policy together. You know, sometimes you need one lawyer per megawatt to get a transmission line approved in either one of our countries. So it's hard to get hydropower from eastern Canada, from La Belle Province and Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's hard to get wind from Montana up to Alberta. You know, we've just got to get a way to be decisive on having a renewable energy policy that is achievable, again, between our two countries. Thirdly, I believe that the United States and Canada has developed the technology now to make a major difference to the U.S. economy and to the U.S. energy consumption with the discovery of scientific ways and safe ways to develop shale gas here in the United States. It presents a tremendous opportunity to the U.S. manufacturing sector to have affordable, available energy for the manufacturing sector. I think will mean that not only will we have less dependence on having oil or natural gas from other countries, because we were building LNG plants to bring natural gas in, now we're actually going to look at having LNG plants to export natural gas out, but it can also provide an affordable, predictable energy source to insource more manufacturing jobs that have been lost to Asia that can come back to North America, can come back to Canada and the United States. We know how in Canada to protect water. Water is very vital, but that is the third element, having shale gas available for U.S. manufacturers and U.S. consumers. And finally, we believe that oil can be and must be developed in the United States, and Canada has the second largest reserve of oil of any country outside of Saudi Arabia. We believe that it is important for us to develop a big picture vision of having oil developed in the Bakken oil fields of Montana and North Dakota and other potential projects that are on the books and are very, very exciting, and improving the environmental stewardship in Canada. It's now, the new project going in is at or below U.S. conventional oil emission levels, the Curl project in Alberta. We believe with those reserves that it makes a lot more sense to trade north and south and have an energy independent strategy that would do a lot of things for both of our economies and do a lot of things for both of our national security priorities. Number one, if you look at how much money goes to the Middle East, and not only in terms of buying oil for your cars, less than 25 cents on the dollar that you spend in oil coming from the Middle East comes back to your communities in Canada or United States. If you buy oil from Canada, it sounds like a paid political announcement, 90 cents is returned. Sometimes in pension investments, because 50% of the equity funds are U.S. pension funds, and sometimes in jobs, over 1,000 suppliers are in the United States, and sometimes into major revenues for municipalities and communities and states because of the tax revenue based on the infrastructure. The second reason is, of course, jobs. It is unbelievable to have a situation where we're creating jobs for upgraders in Algeria and having refineries built in Iraq when we can't build them in Texas and in Alberta. And it makes more sense for U.S. workers and Canadian workers to be building that infrastructure and creating those high-quality jobs, which in turn have higher tax revenues for communities to support vital services like firefighter services. It is really, really important to do that as part of an energy strategy. It's interesting, as an ambassador, I'm in Washington and I hear the debate between the workers and the unions, the building trades, and the environmentalists. And that's an important debate because we all want cleaner air and cleaner water, and we all want quality of jobs in our own communities. But nobody's paying any attention to the veterans. The American Legion comes out and says we need energy independence in Canada and the United States. We're tired of sending our sons and daughters to places of danger where they're losing their limbs and losing their lives, sometimes to protect energy when we have the energy next door. And so we would strongly support the idea that part of what we have to do to return revenues to communities, to return jobs to Canadians and Americans, is to take advantage of energy efficiency, energy renewability, energy development of shale gas, and energy partnership with Canada and the United States to have energy independence from the Middle East. I believe it's extremely important. And I think it was the governor of Montana that said he doesn't send his members of his National Guard to Montana or his members of the Montana National Guard to Fort McMurray or Edmonton. They're losing their lives and their limbs in the Middle East. He gets it, and he supports the development of oil and energy from Canada in partnership with the United States. So I'm suggesting that at this convention, we say yes to fair budgeting for firefighters. We say yes to legislation in every jurisdiction that we're responsible for to protect firefighters and families from the scourge of cancer based on occupational reality and from cardiac disease based on the occupational reality of firefighters. We say no to petro-dictators by providing an energy independent strategy. We say yes to helmets going to hard hats with people returning from Canada and United States to build those energy resources and that energy independence. And we say yes to the revenues that will come in to allow more helmets to go to helmets. Helmets that will be on firefighters' heads and protecting firefighters in every community in Canada and the United States because we have energy independence, because we're growing our economy, because we believe in the priority of vital safety services. And let's come out of this convention standing up with firefighters and finally providing energy independence between the brothers and sisters of Canada and the United States. We can do it. We will do it. Thank you very, very much for your time. Congratulations on having a great convention. Thank you.